Welcome to the Retro Boost Super Ultra Mega very deluxe Ultra on Fire podcast. Title pending, maybe not. That might be it. Big shirt wraparound text. Joining me today is myself, Mike, and
Tory.
Maybe. Undecided.
I might be Thomas. We're not sure yet.
Oh! That's true. You have a twin brother.
Doppelganger.
Yeah. The evil Tory. His name is Riot.
Erote.
Erote.
That's
and
great.
he hates Florida State. So, we are going to be talking about Resident Evil 4 / Resident Evil 4 Remake today. Resident Evil is something that Tory is very passionate about, and I never really gave any thought until the remake came out. I worked at proof. I worked at GameStop in the past, which I've talked about here and there, because Cameron did. That's how me and Cameron met. Was working at GameStop, and I had been present at multiple Resident Evil launches, and they all just kind of seemed to go really bad. Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, not well received. I vividly recall someone coming in and wanting to return it, and sorry, can't return new games. It sucks, but I can't do it. And they put it toward Resident Evil 6, which wasn't super poorly received. Some places actually say it's quite good, but it also seems like it just didn't do that well. At least that was my perception. Maybe I'm wrong.
Nope, you are correct.
Okay, so it just kind of as an outsider looking in, I was like, what is this trash franchise that they just keep limping on? And the movies weren't helping anything.
That hurts my heart, man. That hurts my heart.
And it was the movies are certainly not helping anything. So I just never cared about it. But then RE4 Remake came out, and Tory graciously gifted me a copy. So I checked it out and super enjoyed it. Really, really loved the game. So we're going to be kind of talking about that today, both my experiences with the remake and my thoughts on how they've transformed it from the original, and Tory's thoughts on the original and the remake and all kinds of cool stuff. So I guess we'll start it with that. So tell me, Tory, about your memories of Resident Evil 4 in its original heyday.
So Resident Evil 4 came out originally on the GameCube, and what I did is I pre-ordered the game. I got the player's guide. I got all into it. All my friends were playing it. My twin Thomas was playing it. It just kind of consumed, I think it was either 7th or 8th grade, maybe 9th grade, but it was the game. When you have a GameCube at that time, and you're a huge RE fan. I had played RE2 on the PS1. I had played RE1. The remake of RE1 on the GameCube is one of my top 10 games of all time. I absolutely love the series and the lore and the characters and all of that. So when RE4 came out, I was just totally into it. I remember beating it within a few weeks, and I've played through it countless times since. I remember my GameCube playthrough. When you finished the game, on your save file, it would have how many rounds you had played through the game. And I remember getting to around 8 or 9, and I had all the guns that I wanted, and it wasn't the same as the remake where you could kind of hoard guns. You kind of, whatever you could carry is what you had. It was just a great game. The mercenaries side stuff too. At that time, there was no DLC. So when that came out, I got really excited about that. But RE4 is a wonderful game. I thoroughly enjoyed it when it came out on the GameCube. I own it on just about everything that you can. I've got it on PC, Wii, Switch. I played it through on VR, which was a wonderful experience. And if I ever get a PSVR 2, I will absolutely consider playing through the remake in VR. If anybody has a Quest, I highly suggest the VR port of RE4. It is quite the experience, and unlike really any other way to play the game. I would say as far as ports go, the Wii version of RE4 kind of stands alone as far as where it fits in with all of the ports of RE4. But, you know, to just kind of wrap that up, you know, RE4 is a very, very special game. The remake was really, really great too. I know we'll get more into that, but I RE4 just consumed me for a long time, and it is a wonderful game, and it sits for sure somewhere within my top 10, you know, of all time. And it's just I'm so glad that you had the chance to play the remake.
Yeah, I mean, it ruined my life, so what am I thinking? It was trash. No, I'm just kidding. It's very good. Again, as someone who like just never really experienced much of the Resident Evil games, I did watch a little bit of gameplay of the original Resident Evil. I think it was the GameCube port. I've seen like a speed run of Resident Evil 4, kind of close to when it originally came out, because I used to be really into looking up like I used to actually download them too, like from Speed Demos Archive. Like I would download speed runs and like just kind of watch the games. And I remember that RE4 was one of the ones I watched. Like I knew like kind of what happens in that game. Like, oh, you're running around. There's like you're under siege from villagers and you're kicking ladders down. And you fight this giant fish monster. Like there's like parts of it that I was like always in my head. But again, never played them. So I have played a little bit of Resident Evil, the OG one, for GameCube with you. It was like an unused Retro Boost arcade kind of thing. And thoughts on kind of the transformation that the franchise took, because like they're similar but they're very different games. The first one is like very slow paced. It wants to build a lot of suspense, like room to room. Shooting is like you kind of go into shoot mode and like stand your ground, whereas for both the original and the remake is like much more action oriented. So which of those two experiences do you prefer? Although I think I know what the answer is going to be, but I'm just kind of curious. At the time they were coming out, were you like really into those changes or no?
Well, Resident Evil 1 on the GameCube, kind of the slower paced Metroidvania, almost, sort of. You know, you get keys and you start to slowly unlock areas. It was, like you said, it was very slower paced. I think at that time I was just kind of ready for a new thing. And third-person shooters had really just kind of started coming out because of the advancement in graphics. They could really take that to the next step. You know, after that generation, we ended up getting things like Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, Gears of War. You know, a lot of those things really started to expand. And I think RE4 kind of set the stage, you know, for that. And I just remember being totally bought in and trusting of what the Capcom devs wanted to do. You know, I ended up playing RE5, and I really enjoyed that too. Well, I don't really want to bring up RE6. It's kind of a sore spot, but going back to 4, no, I was totally bought in. And one of the things that really helped with that was one of the things that makes the series so special to me and fans across the globe are the characters. You know, in RE1 you have Chris and Jill. In RE2 you have Leon and Claire. And then in 3 you have Jill, and then in 4 it goes back to Leon, and that's just something that makes the games really important. So for me, like, would I have felt that way if Leon wasn't the main character in RE4? Probably not. So it really kind of helped me trust what the devs were doing, because there was clearly a continuity in story. And that's something that is really important to RE fans, because there's such a lore there, you know, as far as Umbrella goes, and, you know, as far as Oswald Spencer and Wesker, and there's just all these really great characters. So when RE4 came out, and, you know, Leon was the face of the game, and then Ada Wong turned out to be in it, like, it was just really great, and it was kind of like a reunion, you know, of sorts, because I didn't play a ton of RE3. 1 and 2 are very, very special games, and the characters in those games. And no, I just remember being really bought in and really excited for where the series was headed. And I think that's one thing that RE has done really well. It's kind of reinvented itself. And as a fan, that can be really scary.
Coming in and out. Let's give it a second to catch up.
I think I'm back. But I was just saying, you know, as a fan, it's just really, really... It's just really exciting, because the RE series has just reinvented itself so many times.
Well, on that note, something I kind of noticed playing the original on GameCube and then messing around a little bit with the original 4 and then the remake. You look at, like, Metroid, you know, the first Metroid. You're running around a world, you shoot the doors to open them, you collect power-ups, you use power-ups to destroy obstacles / enemies to get more power-ups. And, like, that's kind of the core identity of the game. You know, Mario jumps and hits item blocks, right? Samus runs around, shoots through doors, gets power-ups. It's the bare bones idea, the DNA of the game. So even though the series with every entry seems to lean more into the action side of things, a lot of the traits are still there, because in the original, you know, you're finding the keys, you're solving puzzles. You still do all that in 4. It's just, like, a little bit different. So, like, they're still very aware of what they want the core of the game to still be. Like, they didn't just, like, totally turn into, like, a tactical third-person shooter where you're like Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Zombie Edition or something. Right. Like, you still are constantly confronted with, like, little puzzles, or, can't go in here yet, I gotta go get something else and come back. So that part of it, the pacing and things like that, are still in 4.
Absolutely.
So I think that's just kind of cool. Like, they didn't forget what they wanted to do with it at that point, despite the heavier emphasis on action. Cool.
Well, and just one more point about that point that you just made. 5 and 6 are really interesting in the point where you could say that in 5 they almost took it too far, and then in 6 they took it too far, and then they kind of re-examined their approach, and then kind of went back to what made the series great. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that makes the series great, is Capcom kind of said, oops, we made a mistake here. Here is RE7, which is the scariest of all the games, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. That's kind of what I was getting at, because every entry. I mean, Operation Raccoon City was like a just a straight third-person shooter game. So it's like they were building more toward just total action and not really like suspenseful horror. It's just like a horror setting, versus it being like a horror game. And like you said, they kind of realized that they've gone too far and they had to rope it back. And like 7 and 8 are both much more leading into the more horror side of it than previous games. And I love that 4. I think 4 does both very spectacularly. It's got, for Remake specifically, because of its new mechanics and controls, I think it's a great action shooter game, but it's also a great horror game. And I think the main reason for that is it's not just like a straight remake. I mean, it is a remake, but it's like the best kind of remake, because it's not totally trying to just be the original straight up. Like, they've overhauled a lot of it, and that's kind of what we can talk about next, and I'll actually put it on the screen here too. So let me go ahead and make sure that's showing up. There it is. I'll just kind of go into like a new game basically, and we can kind of appreciate and talk about some of this, just how different just the first part of this is, like, alone. But it's fantastic. It's funny because it's not the only one of its kind. Same thing happened with Dead Space. Like right before, wasn't it like right before? Dead Space Remake was like what, earlier the same year?
Yeah, it was right before, and I remember being worried that there would be too much survival horror in too short of a time, and I didn't give that genre enough credit because I don't think there could be enough, if I'm being honest. I absolutely loved Dead Space 1. I didn't actually beat Dead Space 1 on PS3, so when the remake came out, I took it really seriously and I really wanted to play it, and that's a wonderful game.
There definitely can be too much, and my proof of that would be the game Lawbreakers. Lawbreakers is an example of what happens when there's too much. There's too many team-based little shooter games, and there wasn't enough room for Lawbreakers, so there could always be too much. But like, it is interesting to me that if you include Nintendo, there were 4 of these kind of situations, all in like a 3-month kind of span. Dead Space got like a total remake, overhaul, remake, remaster thing. Resident Evil 4 got its remake. Metroid Prime got a remake. And Kirby's Dreamland, Return to Dreamland Deluxe was also like a texture overhaul, and like they changed certain things and they added features. It was more than just an HD port. That's what I'm trying to get at here. It's the difference between just like porting the game and like cleaning it up a little bit versus like totally rebuilding it from the ground up, and like you get this, like we're looking at it right now. So like it's nothing like the original because it's totally just new.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to remakes, one of the most impactful ones, in my opinion, is actually coming up soon with the Super Mario RPG remake. I am incredibly excited about that.
2023.
So yeah,
the year of
remakes
the
are it's exciting, and yeah, I hope that they keep doing it. Honestly, I'm here for it.
It's funny because there's like a stigma against movies being remade, but it seems like with video games less so.
I think if they're treated with respect, much like this game is, I think that the fan base is okay with it, and I think gamers are okay with it, as long as it's treated with care. We've seen remakes and reskins before that don't pan out, and RE4 is certainly not among those. But yeah, remakes are here to stay. I don't think they're going anywhere, and I'm totally okay with that.
I think remaking a game like RE4 is a great idea because you said it yourself perfectly earlier in regard to third-person shooters like not being well established yet. Because it was like before, I think it was like barely a year before the first Gears of War. Like Gears of War would have been in development, I want to say, when RE4 came out. That's how close it was. Like the original Resident Evil 4 suffers from a lot of the same things that, in my opinion, like the original Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 suffer from. Like, mechanically, there wasn't like a standard to go by. So like you have a lot of these games with like really, really weird shooting controls where it's like those Metal Gear games want you to like hold down like one of the face buttons to like enter like a shoot mode or whatever, and it's like it doesn't feel right at all. Like everything about it is just wrong. But like, you know, what are they gonna do? And then like, you know, you go into that kind of like shoot mode where like you're stuck in place and you have to aim around and you fire your shots or whatever. Whereas games like Gears of War set this like new precedent for how that design is approached. And they didn't turn this into Gears of War, obviously. They found a good middle ground of like channeling the original and channeling modern mechanics. But that's where it can give games like this a second chance, because the spirit is there. Like, it isn't like it doesn't resemble Resident Evil or whatever.
Right.
But the more modern take on the controls and gameplay really help it be more immersive and flow better.
Yeah, definitely.
And you look at like this right here compared to this part in the original game, like they're not even the same thing.
The lighting is very, very different.
Well, it's also nighttime. He arrives in the day in the original.
That's right.
It's like daytime in like a kind of hazy, blighted forest. It's mainly gray and brown as the main color scheme. Whereas here we've got, it's nighttime, spooky. But then like the lighting is more superior. We're in this like dense forest. We have more color to play with. They really went all out in the atmosphere of this game to lean more into the horror aspect of it. Because I mean, like, look at this creepy freaking house here. Like, the original game doesn't look like, it's not even like it's scary.
Well, I will say, like, regarding the other remakes, when the RE1 remake came out on GameCube and then the RE2 remake came out, you know, the fan base was really excited about it. But when this was announced, it was met with a little bit of concern because this game has so many important beats to it that it has to hit. And I think a lot in the fan base were worried about some of the parts of this game translating into a more modern experience. And I think that they dealt with those things beautifully, and actually built on some of those things. The one thing that I would say that was kind of removed from the remake versus the OG game was a little bit of the camp. But I think that's okay. You know, I don't. That didn't feel like a loss for me, at least.
My opinion on that is I feel like the camp was almost there because they just couldn't make it into this. It couldn't be this like incredibly cinematic, deep, genuinely horrifying thing. I think they knew their limitations, and kind of leaning into those limitations with a sense of humor might have been a very smart way to go.
Yeah. For sure. But I just kind of finishing my point on that, I just remember when this was announced, there was excitement, but there was also a lot of like, this is much more of a challenge than what they've done before. And boy, did they nail it. Look at that kick.
Because I mean, the Resident Evil 4, I mean, it has a big following. It's regarded as one of the best games like ever made. So definitely big shoes to fill. I think the remakes of like 2 and 3, people were like, "Oh yeah, those are games that were good, but like, there's plenty of things about them you could fix or whatever." So there was like that kind of sense to them. At least that was the sense that I got from them. Like, they're not really, like, they're classic, but they're also not classic. I don't know how to explain it better than that.
They're much smaller scale. Much smaller scale.
Whereas this, it's like if you're going to remake, like, Super Metroid, like, you're going to get, like, a lot of, like, people going, like, okay. Like, you better watch it.
Exactly. That is the exact metaphor. When this was announced, it was as if they were trying to remake one of the all-time greats. And with that comes the expectation of, don't mess this up or people are going to be really upset. And
speaking of things that are different, I mean, this whole sequence right here is not even in the original.
Yep, completely.
So they're not just remaking the game, they're adding stuff. And I know that they took some stuff away as well, but I think adding scenes like this, again, leaning more into the horror element is like such a smart way to go.
Well, and this game versus the OG game, there are significantly more horror segments in this game than there are. You know, anybody who's played RE4 through a ton of times gets stressed out whenever regenerators are anywhere in the game. And this game gives you quite a few more scenes with the regenerators, which you know, will induce a lot of stress, and that certainly is an example of them leaning into the horror element.
He always gets to me. All right, I got him. Give me your money.
Give me all your monies.
Speaking of the regenerator, that's something that was changed. I remember you telling me that you pawned your thermal scope thing the first chance you got, and then regretted that pretty quickly.
Because I assumed that the progression would be the same, and I wouldn't see regenerators again after a certain point in the game. And that was one of many times where the Capcom devs were being cheeky with the prior fan base, in my opinion, because they just added stuff to the game that people didn't expect, and it was wonderful.
Bruce, this is Condor
1. So the gameplay changes. So as that as an example. So they're adding all this content. Now, one big thing that they changed that I remember you remarked to me when you saw me playing it the one time, the parry mechanic is like the big that's totally new, right?
Yes,
okay,
that is not in old school RE4, not at all.
So it's a totally new mechanic. As someone like me who's coming into this for the first time, you know, to me, it's a normal mechanic that was introduced. To you, the veteran who's used to the original, I remember that you remarked to me that you were kind of surprised that I was putting in all these upgrades into the knife. Because, like, I'm trying to, like, lean into that new mechanic more, but you know, weren't really using it much. Because you're just not, you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, you know, the parry ad kind of changed the entire way that I approached this game. You know, in my playthrough too. In my first, you know, playthrough of the game, I didn't really invest in the parry mechanic at all, because the style with which I play these games is an incredibly aggressive approach where I create space for myself by running around maps. And the parry mechanic lends itself to more of like a Dark Souls approach, where you wait for the enemies to approach you and you make the moves based on that. And that was just counter to what I had done in RE4 before. So it was a mechanic that just took me a lot of time to kind of get used to. I now love the mechanic and think that it's a great ad. It just changed the way that I approached enemy encounters, and that was just one of the things about the remake that I really, really loved, and you know, one of many. But yeah, it just changed the way that I had to approach the game, just like that. Yeah, it just I would have really aggressively moved through that map and created space for myself, instead of waiting for the enemies to approach me. That was just not... Oh! That was just not my approach. But yeah, that was just one of many things that they added into the game that that were wonderful. Oh God,
No. Oh gosh. Oh no. Oh, we're in trouble.
you're all right. Oh, nice.
I'll stab you.
Nice.
I did it.
Oh.
Oh. Well, I
Got him.
Under control.
That's one more thing that's not in the game or not in the 05 title. There's no finishers when an enemy's on the ground. You can stomp on them, but as far as the knife goes, there's not anything like that. But yeah, the counter mechanic was a really great add that I think really built on the gameplay and just kind of created more variety in how the player could approach certain scenarios. Now this area right here is interesting because it is almost identical to the 05 title on GameCube. The map itself is literally almost the exact same. I would be hard pressed to find areas that are not the same. I know once you get towards the church tower, there are certain areas where you can go beneath the ground that were not in the old title. But as far as the base village map, it is just almost to a T. That pile of wood there to your left is in the 05 title. I mean, it's very, very close.
I know the one change here was with the tower that you can climb.
Well, the tower is there in the 05 title. It's definitely there, but you don't fall through the floor like you do in this one. and kind of following up to one of my prior points, that's one of the examples where the developers were saying, hey, you played this title when you were a kid, you know where to go, we're going to trick you. And that, as far as the regenerators go, is just one more of those scenarios where I feel like the devs were just being funny. Very nice. Oh, nice counter.
I'm trying to do it. They're coming for me. I like the seamless weaving of gameplay and cinematics here. I think it's really cool.
So this scene is in the 05 title as well, and I remember when I was reading about this scene in a Nintendo Power, what the CPU could do just absolutely blew my mind. How they would lift up the ladders to get on the second floor. It absolutely blew my mind, and I remember just thinking, like, man, the CPU in this game is so smart. But yeah, this is just one of many examples where the developers really, really stayed true to the prior title.
I think this is like one of those things that like they really had to. They know that it's like a beloved sequence in the franchise.
I remember when I bought you this game. I remember the first thing that I thought was, if he can just get through the beginning village scene, he'll be fine. And I remember you struggling a little bit to get through it. But when you did, I had a moment of pride and thought, okay, if he got through that, he can beat the game. And sure enough, I was right.
I kind of had to get used to the way that you run and gun in this game. Because it's definitely different than a lot of the established shooters that are around that I play. Whether it be just kind of like typical things, like your mainstream third-person shooters. The most recent of which that I played was like Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands. Or something a little more niche, like Vanquish. So like the instincts to want to do behind the thing. I want to do that suplex you can do. Okay, I triggered that on purpose. This is pretty cool. There's two of these you can trigger with this guy. So there's that one. And then if I cart him to the other side, there's another one. Again, I like the weaving of cinematic elements. It's just kind of cool to me.
Absolutely. Yep.
Come get me. Ah! This
Oh my goodness.
He comes through here. Oh, he's the other way. Alright. Follow me through here. Follow me through here. Man, why didn't he do it? That's the other spot. Maybe he's got to be closer to me. I don't know. Oh, God.
Oh, the poor flaming cow.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry.
That was a nice dodge there, man. You had an axe coming your way, and you just weaved right around it.
Leave me alone. I'm just a traveler. Yeah, I guess it'd be closer behind me to trigger that second one. Really fun. Like, I like. There's like the kind of like sort of sandbox element to like this level, or this sequence rather.
Oh yeah.
I think it's what people really adored from this, and that's why like they didn't really change anything. Because I'm sure that there were people that were pining to. There's that expectation for it, I guess. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Whenever you've got a game that's this well known, there's always a lot of risk involved with trying to remake a game that has this sort of a following. And that's kind of why you have to give Capcom so much credit, because, man, this is a big job, and they absolutely just knocked it out of the park.
I love the melee stuff. It's fun.
Oh, it's so great. And that was kind of the series' first experience with that was RE4, and they really built on that and made it even better. And
it's just like the best mixture of like campiness and coolness.
Absolutely.
Is Leon's roundhouse kick.
Yeah, definitely.
I did it. I didn't die.
Well done. Very
But
nice
again,
job. You did
wasn't
exactly what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to kite them around the map, provide space for yourself, not kill all of them, because then you'll be out of ammo. And yeah, that's great job. Very nice.
I beat it on Professional a couple weeks ago.
Very nice.
It took like 7 tries because Dr. Psychopath kept chainsawing me.
Nice. Very nice, dude. I'm very impressed with that.
And then we get our big line drop. I actually can't hear it, so I'm going to rely on you to say it when it goes.
Oh, I'll hear it. Best line of the entire game. I was so worried he wasn't going to say it.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Oh, I love it. So good. There would have been riots in the street if he wouldn't have said that.
I remember you saying
like,
that.
I'm telling you.
They got rid of the bro line, but they kept that one.
Beautiful. Yeah. So good. So good.
So that's the first little chunk of the game right there. I'll bring it back to our main capture window here. Boink, boink, boink. Back in action. So that's the beginning right there. Very impressive first act of a game. The first impression that a game gives you is like so important, of course, but like with me, like I have played so many games where I start it and I'm like 20-30 minutes in and I'm just like, nah. Most recently, a couple days ago, it was on sale. I grabbed it. I was optimistic. It didn't grab me. That new Mario Raving Rabbids crossover thing, Sparks of Hope,
Yeah.
got like really good reviews. People say it's like an underrated gem. It just like didn't do anything for me, and I'm like, like it just didn't do anything like super interesting out of the gate that really grabbed my attention. Maybe I'll go back to it again. I've heard it's really good, but it didn't grab me. This sequence right here, like this just first little 25 minutes, is so unbelievably spectacular. Immersing you in the horror setting in the cabin, having you go down that dark basement, then the heavy action sequence in the village, having you just skirt both of those lines. Great atmospheric horror and like great suspenseful, horrifying gameplay, because like you're not this like indestructible Titan man who can just go and like gun everybody down in the face. They're all like enhanced humans because of the parasites, so you can't just like pop 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 Call of Duty pop 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 and like you get your way through it. So like it's just like so good. I really love it. I want to talk a little bit about the story of the game. I think something kind of interesting about this is that it's kind of similar to Metroid Prime in the sense that there isn't like a narrative that you're involved with. So take like Mass Effect. Like you go into Mass Effect 2 specifically. Let's say you didn't play the first one. You jump into 2. You don't know what the Geth are. Well, don't worry. Someone's gonna tell you what the Geth are. Oh, you don't really understand what this thing is. The Krogan. You don't know why the Krogan are like so mad at other species. Well, don't worry. Someone's going to tell you. Whether it be organically or inorganically, that game explains the world, and like there's a story happening and people are talking about it constantly, right? With this, there's a story. Leon is sent to get the president's daughter. That's what Leon knows. That's what you as the player know. You encounter these freak people, and like the guy that he first roundhouse kicks, there's obviously something visibly wrong with him. You can barely tell that in the original game, by the way, because of the era that it came out. He has like red eyes and stuff, but you can barely tell. In this, it's like something is obviously wrong with this guy, but you don't know. Like, you don't know why. Like you have to figure that out as you go. Like you the player learn what Leon learns as it happens. You have as much information as he does, much like Metroid Prime. You land on that planet because Samus wants to rip Ridley's head off. That's why she lands there, right? That's her purpose. She's gonna kill Ridley, period. And the space pirates. That's all there is to it. You find out across the game, reading those logs, entries, and things like that, that there's all this other stuff going on, why the pirates are there, what they're doing, what the Phazon stuff is. They're very similar in that regard. Like, you will only know as much as you will know from either extrapolating things from like villain speeches, or if you take the time to read all the various little documents you find along the way. And I think that's actually very cool. Had a good time with it in that regard, because like there's always something scary about like not having all the answers. Because like when that big the first boss, tell me that guy's name because you know all their names. The first major boss.
The giant or the lake beast thing?
No, the guy, the first major of the trio of dudes.
Oh, the Batoris Mendez is his name.
Okay. So Mendez comes at you like the nemesis from Resident Evil 2, the movie. He's just this lumbering giant monster man.
Stars.
He's bulletproof. We don't really know why. Like, he's just taking bullets, and he has like ultra mega strength. And there's just like something disconcerting about like not knowing why. And you know, like you know more if you take the time to read the stuff that you find along the way. And I thought that was just really cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's one thing that the series does really well. You know, if you go back and you play RE1 and you play RE2, you know, the files and the logs and the books and the way that they kind of piece the story is really, really great. Specifically, I would say in RE1, once you get like down into the lab and you get to read about when things were first exposed and all of those. But that's one thing that this series does really well, is it gives you like a baseline story, like Leon, go save this, and then it fills in those blanks with all this beautifully crafted lore that you did not expect. And that's one thing that RE4 did. I would say that the remake did that better than the 05 title, just because I think Capcom has just gotten so good at that piece. But yeah, that's one thing that the series has done throughout, and it continues to do today with RE8. RE8 somehow, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but it somehow ties into the series in a really great way. And I think that kind of goes back to how Capcom treats the lore and the characters and all these things that the fan base just absolutely loves.
No thanks, bro. Let's talk a little bit about the bosses real quick. So I've seen what they've changed between the original and the remake. And I know that one of probably the biggest changes regarding the bosses is little Zombo Napoleon Boy. He's basically Sigma from Mega Man X in the original game. You fight a wall. But then in the remake, like, totally different encounter. I thought that was pretty cool. Did you know that going in, or did you already know about that before you played the game?
So I am really great about spoilers, and I actually did not know. I did not spoil a single boss fight for myself, even going into the final boss fight. It had been spoiled for me by my twin that he didn't like what they had changed, and now that I've fought that boss, I would agree. That's one of the rare occurrences where I prefer what they did in the prior game. The boss fight's not terrible, but it's certainly not better than the OG title, in my opinion. That may be the only example of a boss fight not being done better in the remake, if I'm being honest. But yeah, that example, that's the only boss fight in the game where I prefer what they did with the OG GameCube title.
Gotcha. I know that one other big thing they got rid of was the Metal Gear-esque codec conversation thing. I've seen like a lot of clips of that where like Leon can have all these goofy conversations with various characters, including the villains even. And that's totally gone in this version. It probably really would have clashed with the tone, even if it was serious. It's just kind of weird that they'd be talking like that all the time, I guess. But
well, it goes back to the fact that they had to kind of remove the camp from this title because it just wouldn't have fit. Those things fit in the 05 title. They wouldn't have fit into the current day one. And there is a little bit of that with Hunnigan, but which was good because that's something that I know the fans were like, oh, is that going to be in it? But I think as far as them removing like that becoming a big deal with like villains involved, I did not think that was a change. For me, at least, it wasn't a change that I mind really at all.
And remind me, was the minecart sequence in the original? Probably not.
It was significantly smaller. Significantly smaller. And you were there solo. You were not there with a buddy.
Gotcha. So that was a really fun sequence in this game. It kind of reminded me of like the games of yore, where modern games are very much whatever they start as, they finish as. So if I'm going to play like the newest Halo game, it's going to be like a first-person shooter all throughout, right? It's not going to have some kind of mini game where it's an RTS game at some point. Like that aspect of AAA gaming seems to have gone away. It was really fun to have this random but very well done minecart chase sequence break out in Resident Evil. It reminded me of the chase sequence thing from Metal Gear Solid 4. It's very similar.
Yeah.
Super fun divergence from the usual formula.
I loved that part of the game. One character, and I'm sure we'll get into the cast, but Louis Serra, they really built on that character a lot and made him a bigger part, and really did great by him. I thought that was a character that they really expanded on in the remake. And did a great job with it. That entire minecart scene is, the comment we made before is not in the OG title. So it just really added a lot to the experience. And coming from somebody who played a ton of the OG RE4, I was kind of like waiting for the one thing to occur to him. And I'm sitting here like, this is great. Like, this character, I'm so excited and so glad that they prolonged his existence in the title. And, unfortunately, it didn't last the entire game. But as far as the characters in the cast that they wanted them to build on, Louis Serra was at the very top of that list.
I liked this character quite a bit too. Spending more time with him in that cavern sequence was a lot of fun. Then the Krauser boss fight was a lot of fun too, and you told me that in the original is basically a QuickTime event sequence, whereas in the remake it's much more evocative of like Metal Gear Solid 4's like final battle, where it's this duel, and it's almost like the game once again like diverges a little bit into a different genre, like it becomes like a fighting game almost.
Yeah, so the knife fight scene in the remake, when Louis Serra is killed, that knife scene is a QuickTime event. That's it. But the actual boss fight is a relatively normal boss fight. But the knife fight is quite the experience and one of the highlights of the OG title. In my opinion, it was just a really cool way that they did that. It reminded me of like Metal Gear Solid-esque type stuff. But yeah, in the OG title, that knife fight, where pretty much in the current title, it's just like a counter fight the whole time, and you counter and then you kick or punch or whatever. In the OG title, it was press B and A at the same time, or tap A, or press L and R or whatever. But really exciting. That character, I thought, was handled really well. As well, both of those, the knife fight and the eventual boss fight in the third act of the game.
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit too. I thought all the boss fights were pretty fun.
Yep,
all
I would agree.
Were memorable in their own way. Overall, really enjoyed the whole thing. It was fun to play something current again, because between responsibilities and stuff I do for the channel, I find very little time for like recreational gaming, as I would describe it. So like I've really fallen out of being able to keep up with like current releases. And it was just kind of cool to like be playing something that was like new, and I'm like, oh, so this is where gaming is at right now, both like graphically and just the way it played and everything.
Oh yeah,
super enjoyed it. So RE4 Remake, spectacular game, and I think a great example of just the best kind of, let's look at the original, let's look at where the technology and where gaming is now, and we're going to remake this, but how can we make this what we wanted it to be back then? Like how, and like that's what this is. It's such a great improvement. It keeps the spirit of the original. It makes itself like the ultimate standard of like, this is where gaming is now at the same time. Like it isn't like, like an HD port, it's like, oh, that was a fun game back then. You want to play it again right now, but just like it's a little bit cleaner, maybe? Meh. Like Tales of Symphonia just like had another port come out, same month that this came out. I'm pretty sure it was at the same month. It was the same week that Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe came out, whatever that was, early mid-March. It's just a port. It's not a remake though. So it's like, here's the game again, and that port apparently was like a burning dumpster fire full of technical problems.
Yeah, it was.
So there's two different ways to approach that, and like this took that path. So I guess we would expect to be seeing them announce RE5 remake in the next year or two if we think the trend is going to continue linearly. Or maybe they'll stop at this one. I don't know.
Well, I have some theories about that, but one point that I wanted to make about you playing this game is, I have, since I've helped with the channel, a lot of off-camera dialogue we've had has been about this series and how much it means to me. So getting you this game was kind of like my final roll of the dice. Like, if he doesn't like this, I'm done. Like, I'm not bringing it up. I'm not selling him to anything. Like, I'm gonna move on, and I'm not gonna discuss about how important and how great this series is. So it means a lot to me that you played it, and it means even more that you enjoyed it. To be honest with you.
Oh, genuinely. Like, I genuinely was like addicted to this game as I played it. It was, I deliberately made the time to play it, ignoring other things to do so because I was loving it that much.
Awesome! I love hearing.
And
that.
I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to try to find the time to play the original just to do it, because I've seen comparison videos, but I haven't tasted that for myself. So that'd be fun to do. But yeah, man, like genuinely, like I'm really glad that you introduced me to this because this is a great game. Big fan of every moment of it. In particular, a moment that I'll never forget is like one of those cliche-defying moments that I love is when little Salazar goes to make some bad guy speech. He gets like 2 words in, and Leon just shoots him.
Yep.
Like I love stuff like that where cliches. He doesn't just stand and let the guy make the villain speech. He's just like, what? Shut up! It's just like shoots him. Like I love stuff like that. So really enjoyed playing it. Like I was saying, I guess like I almost wonder if they'll stop here. Like, do we think that they're gonna remake 5 and then 6? I mean, it would make sense if they continue the trend. At the same time, I could see them stopping here.
So my theory is that they are going to back away from the numerical games and remake one of the offshoot games, and I believe that game will be
Code Veronica.
It'll be Code Veronica, and the reason why I believe that is because this character model of Leon is the exact same character model from RE2. Claire is the main character in Code Veronica. So what they'll end up doing is they'll use the same model who played Claire in RE2 in Code Veronica. And it continues the trend that RE does, where they have Jill or Chris, and then Leon or Claire, and then so on. And I think that I just think that Code Veronica is going to be it's going to be the next remake that they do. That's just kind of my feelings because that is an underappreciated entry in the title or in the series. And it begs to be played. There's a lot of really great environments. There's a lot of really great boss fights. Wesker is in it. The Ashfords are in it, which are really important to the lore. I just think that a Code Veronica remake would do a lot as far as continuing the lore and continuing to build on that. That's just my opinion.
Wesker. I've only got one thing to say about him. I thought it was like hilariously stupid that at the end,
So bad. So bad.
Ada is like, "Hey, what you want to use this for?" And he just tells her. He's just like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill everybody with it. Why ask?" And then she's just like, "Okay, so I'm not gonna give it to you then." Conversation over. The man, I'll give him props. He's honest. Like he's a straight shooter. Like he didn't he didn't mess around with her. He's just like, "I'm gonna take over the world and kill like half the population."
I do think at some point,
well?
I do think we will see an RE5 remake, but I think it won't be for quite some time. I think that they'll focus on a Code Veronica remake, and I might be wrong, and they might announce RE5 remake tomorrow. But I just think that there are games in the series that have stories that need to be told.
They should
and
remake
I think Code Veronica is one of them.
That 3DS one that got ported to the Wii U. They should remake that.
Hey, whoa! I love that game.
Revelations.
I've played 1 and 2, and I own both on Switch, and I played through 1 and 2, and those games are great. They're not of the quality of like this game, but they're very high quality third person shooters that have horror elements and continue the story. I mean, Jill is the main character in 1, and Barry Burton and Claire are the main characters in 2. So it's just one more example of Capcom doing a really good job with continuing to make games with these characters that we all love.
I know it's happened before. I've just never seen it personally until then. But it's just so funny to me that they ported a game for the 3DS to the Wii U. Porting like a PSP game to a console, they've done that like 1,000 times. It's because there's only one screen. You got a TV or you got the PSP. It's one screen, right? But the 3DS has got 2 screens. So like porting that game, the Wii U, up to the task, because it in fact has a second screen. You should mess around with the Wii U version of that and see if you still like it.
So the first time that I played through RE4 was on the 3DS, and then I ended up playing it through on the Switch, playing through RE4 and 2 on the Switch. I still think that they need to come out with RE4 3. I mean, I really enjoyed those series,
The next
and
project.
like I said, yeah, it could be that. That would be very exciting. Those games have a very, very fun multiplayer mode, which is something that a lot of early games don't have. So shout out Rev 1 and 2 for the online modes. They're super fun.
Cool. All right. I think that's about the bulk of it there. I will say this, and I mean, it's kind of an obvious question, and I'm going to qualify why it's an obvious question, but we had a lot of remakes come out this year, so of the remakes, what do you think has been the best remake so far? Dead Space, RE4, Metroid Prime Remastered, etc., etc.
I would say the RE4 remake. I think because I think it had more to kind of it had more to explain. When you announce a remake of a game like this, the industry kind of says, whoa, like you can't mess this up, because if you do, things are going to get really bad. And I think that they took that pressure and they just absolutely knocked it out of the park. I loved the Dead Space remake. I loved the game. I played through it shortly before playing this. But I think when you look at the totality of a game and kind of what they added, what they took out, all of those things, I think RE4 kind of stands alone as the example. Well, and they started it with RE2. The remake of RE2 was great, and then 3 was good. So Capcom really understands their audience and the fan base, and kind of how much we care about this game and the lore and all that. And I just think that they did a great job. I would say it's probably the best remake ever made, to be honest with you.
I'd be inclined to agree. I mean, It's funny. I think a lot less of Metroid Prime Remastered because of how good RE4 Remake is. Metroid Prime Remastered literally removed things as opposed to add things, because they stripped away so many of the speedrunning tricks slash sequence breaking tricks that were like so beloved by the community and myself. I'm not a speedrunner by any means, but like Metroid Prime is a game that I am able to sequence break in and like turn that into a very non-linear open world experience without having to use action replay beforehand. And they took away like all of that, and like they locked, people found a way to like do the initial space jump boot trick, but it's like excessively tedious for someone that isn't like super good at the game to do. So they kind of walled it off to like only the most dedicated. But then those dedicated are just not going to do it. They're just going to play the original. I feel like they had a chance to change and add things, but much like what you were saying, there's that kind of like, whoa, what are you doing? This is a beloved game. What are you doing? So they went the safe route, and they just like they locked it down. They made it more stable by removing the speedrunning stuff and the sequence breaking stuff. It's just a very safe game. I played through it once. I'll probably never play through it again. There's no reason to. I can't play it again and like sequence break and enjoy it all anew. I can't do that. So I'll never go back. It was really cool, like what I played, but that game really was begging for like, maybe they could have added a whole new zone. Maybe they could have added a handful of new power-ups, alternate or different cutscenes, some kind of like Metroid is like so renowned for its speedrunning presence, at least the earlier games in the series. So they could have had like a time trial mode. Like, I don't know. They didn't do any of that. Whereas RE4 Remake, like, not that it added new modes, but like you just look at what they did compared to the original, and it's like, damn. So that's just why it's so good.
What is your favorite gun?
Well, I use the one that penetrates the whole way through, pretty much.
The Punisher.
The Punisher. Yeah, I used the Punisher like the whole way through the game, pretty much.
Nice.
I would only really use other stuff when it was like I've got to clear out people fast. So like the shotgun, and then the bolt gun with explosive tips.
Heck yeah, dude. I loved the bolt gun. That was like, I have this thought where I want to do a playthrough where I just have the bolt gun, and that's it.
I think you'd run into problems in that sequence where you have to protect Ashley when she's up on the other sections, because you can't recover those bolts.
That's a good point. Yeah. So maybe not.
The run would potentially fall apart right there.
The bolt gun and the stingray. There you go.
That's pretty. Yeah. The bolt gun. I'm only going to use the bolt gun in 4 other things contingently. Yeah. It's still a bolt gun centric run.
Yeah, definitely.
That's funny. I need to play it again though. I was doing New Game Plus on professional. I need to continue that because it's a fun game, and I do kind of want to beat it on a harder difficulty. I played it on normal the first time, but I think it'd be more fun to play it on harder with the New Game Plus at least. So I'm
definitely
equipped for the challenge. Cool. So hey, thanks for joining us on our Super Mega Ultra Deluxe Ultra on Fire Leon edition thing.
Thanks, bro. Sponsored
by Bro.
Right. Yeah, this has been great dialogue, man. Really, really enjoyed it. This is a game in a series that means a ton to me, and it's great to kind of run through it, with you.
Yeah, and I loved playing it. I'm looking forward to what comes next, and I'm also looking forward to going backward as well. We need to take another stab at some other Resident Evil games. We've tried multiple times to play Umbrella Chronicles, and various issues have prevented us from doing it, but I really want to because it was fun. So you need to do it, and then maybe we'll watch all the movies as well. Cameron and I got like four deep before we just.
It's like
it
it's like when me and the wife decide to watch through all of the Star Wars films, and we get halfway through 2, and then we're done. Nope.
Yeah, I can see that.
Definitely.
All right, until the next one, the topic of next one, who knows? We haven't figured that out yet, but we will. Maybe it'll be about something that's a thing.
Sounds good. Talk to you later, buddy.